At Woodward Penitentiary, psychiatrist Dr. Miranda Gray is interviewing her patient, Saba. Chloe tells her about the devil who visits her in her cell almost every night and rapes her. Miranda dismisses this as delusions, believing it to be Chloe's way of repressing the abusive memory of her stepfather. This angers Chloe, and she lashes out at Miranda, prompting the nurses to take her away. Unfazed, Miranda returns to the office of Dr. Doug Gray, her colleague and husband. They share a passionate kiss until another colleague, Dr. Pete Graham, interrupts them. Doug leaves for the day while Miranda works overtime. Her workday concludes on a stormy night as Pete escorts her to her car. She follows her usual route home but has to take a detour due to a sinkhole. She turns left and crosses a small white bridge. Suddenly, Miranda sees a girl in the middle of the road, which causes her to crash her car. Though uninjured, she approaches the girl in the pouring rain, offering help. The girl simply stares at her, then grabs her face. Miranda screams as the girl bursts into flames, and then she passes out. When Miranda wakes up, she's in an observation cell in the same penitentiary where she worked. She feels disoriented and has no memory of the previous night. Miranda goes wild, thrashing around her room until the nurses manage to sedate her and call Dr. Graham. Pete then reveals to her that she has been in the cell for 3 days and asks her about the last thing she remembers. Miranda recalls her last night and tells Pete about the girl she saw. He tells her that it's impossible because there was no girl at the scene. Slowly, he reveals to her that her husband Doug is dead and that Miranda has been accused of his murder. She breaks down, and Pete pins her down on the bed while the nurses try to sedate her again. The next morning, Miranda finds herself in the penitentiary's cafeteria, surrounded by her former patients. Chloe taunts her by tossing a newspaper clipping at her. Miranda opens it and gasps at the front-page article, confirming her worst fears. Later that night, she wakes up and hears someone breathing on her cell's glass door. She jumps back as the words "not alone" appear on the misty glass. Unable to accept her new reality, she huddles in a corner and concludes that she must be dreaming. When Miranda opens her eyes, it's already morning. She's directed to the showers, where she bathes with 20 other women. Then, she hears Chloe taunting her. Turning around, she sees the girl she saw on the road. Miranda is terrified, but the girl catches up to her and digs her nails into her arm. The other patients, frightened by her erratic behavior, run away, leaving her bloody and alone on the tiled floor. At the infirmary, Pete still thinks she's deluded and checks her vitals. Trying to make sense of things, Miranda gets Pete to admit his true romantic feelings for her, but he insists that he's just trying to help her. Miranda attempts to contact another colleague, Dr. Phil Parsons, but he's unwilling to assist her. She is then taken to her lawyer, Teddy Howard. Teddy informs her that the evidence against her is so overwhelming that they have no choice but to plead for temporary insanity. Sheriff Bob Ryan, Doug's best friend, joins the meeting but quickly loses his temper. He accuses Miranda and shows her the gruesome crime scene photos. She trembles and notices her cuts are bleeding again. Removing the bandage, she sees the words "not alone" etched into her skin. Her eyes then fall on the photos, seeing the same words painted in blood on their bedroom door. Miranda has another breakdown and is quickly sedated by the medical staff. Pete takes her to see Dr. Parsons the next morning. Miranda tells the 2 doctors that she was there when Doug was killed but insists she wasn't alone. As she tries to convince them, she notices a framed picture behind Dr. Parsons. Miranda is shocked and tells them that this is the girl she saw that night. Dr. Parsons looks sad and tells Miranda that it's impossible because the girl in the picture was his daughter, Rachel, who committed suicide 4 years ago. As night falls, Miranda wakes up to the strong presence in her cell once again. She calls out to the spirit, saying that if it truly is the ghost of Rachel Parsons, it should let her out of the cell. The door opens, and she escapes into the hallway, where she sees the figure of a ghostly girl walking through the wall. Miranda breaks into Pete's office, where his computer suddenly turns on, displaying a webpage article about Rachel Parsons. A surveillance camera feed then appears on the screen, showing the girl standing in the hallway of the solitary confinement section. Fearing that Chloe is in danger, Miranda runs to her. She arrives at solitary and hears a thump from Chloe's cell. As she looks through the opening, Chloe's bloody face is pushed against the glass. She attempts to open the door but is intercepted by a man bearing an Animasola tattoo on his chest. Evading him, she is subdued by medical personnel. The next day, Miranda encounters Pete and inquires about Chloe. She recounts encountering the tattooed man, asserting Rachel did not commit suicide. Pete dismisses her as delusional once more, cautioning her about consequences if she persists. Later that day, Miranda locates Chloe in the yard. Miranda apologizes to Chloe for doubting her stories earlier. Chloe accepts the apology and gives Miranda a hug, but still can't identify the culprit. Chloe then warns Miranda that a malevolent force is targeting her next. Later, in the psychiatric ward, Miranda senses the eerie presence once more. As she turns around in her cell, she sees the ghost's decaying face appear before her, slamming her into the wall. Miranda desperately tries to defend herself, but finds no way to escape. The ghost relentlessly throws her against the walls, shattering the furniture. Finally, just as authorities arrive, the ghost drops Miranda to the ground. When an officer checks on her, Miranda attacks and knocks him out, seizing the keys to make her escape from the ward. The alarm blares, alerting the officers to search for their missing patient. Miranda sneaks into an unused wing of the hospital and hides in the pool until the officers leave. When she opens her eyes, a ghost appears before her. Startled, she screams and flees, finding refuge under the desk of her friend, Officer Joe. Joe helps her escape by giving her his car keys. Miranda quickly speeds away in his car, startled when she glimpses the ghost in her rearview mirror. Driving too fast, she sees a truck approaching at the intersection. Despite slamming on the brakes, terror grips her as the car doesn't respond. Miraculously, her car narrowly avoids the truck, and in her panic, she lets out a crazed laugh. She careens through road signs, finally halting just before plunging into a sinkhole. In a fit of rage, she shouts into the back seat, demanding to know what the ghost wants from her. The radio suddenly switches on, providing a clue. Miranda arrives at the house she once shared with her husband just as the porch lights flicker on. As she surveys the home, she notices dried bloodstains on the carpet. Memories flood back to her. She recalls holding a bloody axe, standing over her frightened husband. Yet these memories don't feel like her own. It's as if she was possessed. In the bathroom, she gazes into the mirror. Her face twists into an unfamiliar visage, and she realizes the one who killed her husband was not herself but the vengeful ghost of Rachel Parsons. Sobbing in their bedroom, Miranda clutches a photograph. The ghost signals her once more, guiding her to go to Willow Creek. At daybreak, Miranda arrives at their rural home. Upon inspecting the empty house and barn filled with broken farming tools, she notices a video camera box that leads her to a hidden basement entrance. Downstairs, she flicks on the lights and is horrified by what she finds: a bed, chains, drugs, and video equipment. Watching one of the tapes reveals her husband Doug's horrifying secret. He's been leading a double life, kidnapping, torturing, raping, and murdering women. Just as she prepares to flee upon hearing footsteps upstairs, a police officer apprehends her, accompanied by another woman emerging from the basement depths, Tracy Severs, Doug's latest victim, covered in blood. Miranda is taken in for questioning. She seizes an opportunity to speak with Dr. Parsons, recounting her interactions with Rachel and concluding that Rachel might have been one of Doug's victims. She attempts to discuss the same theory with Pete, but he dismisses her once again. Spending the night in her cell, she demands to see Sheriff Ryan, who is unavailable. Meanwhile, Pete conducts his own investigation into the Animasola tattoo. Later that night, Sheriff Ryan visits Miranda in her cell. Miranda informs him that not alone indicates there are two killers, not just Doug. She shares her theory and develops a psychological profile of the second killer. As she outlines the details, she realizes the profile eerily matches Sheriff Ryan. She concludes that his willingness to talk to her stems solely from his attempt to cover his own tracks. Sheriff Ryan realizes Miranda is onto him and slams her against the wall. She tears open his shirt, exposing the Animasola tattoo on his chest, confirming he was the man she saw in Chloe's cell. Miranda breaks free and climbs the stairs as he fires shots, accidentally hitting a gas pipe. She reaches locked doors, screaming for help, but he catches up. Hiding under a desk, she watches him retrieve his shotgun. As he prepares to reveal long-held secrets and confess to killing Rachel Parsons with Doug, he flips her desk, noticing a shadow on the other side. He shoots at the figure, discovering it's not Miranda but Rachel. He fires another bullet, shattering the glass, and is horrified to discover Rachel's lifeless body. In panic, he shoots again, inadvertently igniting the gas around him. The resulting explosion knocks him back, engulfing him in flames. As he turns toward Miranda, she levels a gun at him and delivers the fatal shot. Just then, Pete arrives at the door, relieved to find Miranda alive, apologizing for doubting her earlier. A year later, Miranda's charges are dismissed. Walking the city streets with Chloe, now a close friend since their release, Miranda helps her hail a taxi before they bid farewell. Miranda continues alone, spotting a boy in the street's midst, reaching out just as he vanishes. Nearby, a lamppost bears a poster seeking the missing boy. If you liked the summary, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. It's free and really helps me keep growing.